Hello and welcome to a very quick SEV news update. I'm going to keep this one very short because I've got a horrible cold. The big news, of course, is the Silicon Valley Bank situation. Now, I have to admit that I was actually very nervous about this situation because this bank specifically aims at helping startups, and Aptera being a startup, there was a very good chance that Aptera was heavily involved with this bank. And at first there was no reaction from Aptera, probably because it was the weekend and they didn't feel the need to emergency reply until this panic started to set in certain areas of the social media groups, and a lot of people were desperate for some kind of reply, some kind of acknowledgement from Aptera. Eventually, they simply replied with a tweet saying Aptera has no money in SVB and is not affected, which was obviously a great relief to everybody involved in Aptera and people who have invested heavily in the Aptera program. It does bring a bit of the question as to which banks they are involved with. I don't think they have any kind of moral obligation to provide their banking information, and if they have any sense, their savings and investments will be spread over several different banks to mitigate this kind of risk of going under through no fault of their own. This could have been a very cruel and nasty end to Aptera. Luckily for us, this was not the case, and Aptera has dodged this bullet and survived to live another day. I do, however, feel very sorry for all the startups. Startup companies are notoriously hard to get off the ground, and a lot of startup companies will have been badly affected by this collapse. It's not entirely clear what is going to happen now with the customers of this bank. I think that's going to become a lot clearer over the next couple of weeks. As to why it collapsed, it seems very self-inflicted. If you read the New York Times article, it says the collapse may have been an unforced, self-inflicted error. The bank's management chose to sell $21 billion of bonds at a $1.8 billion loss. In large part, it appears because many of those bonds were yielding an average of only 1.79% at a time when interest rates had risen drastically and the bank was starting to look like an underperformer relative to its peers. This, in combination with the fact that they weren't under the same strict obligations as the larger banks, they were just under the cap for a lot of the heavy regulations, meant that they could do riskier moves, and they sold off a huge amount of bonds, which left them slightly overexposed, and then they had this $1.8 billion hole in their finances, which they then had to plug, and that has caused this small panic. It's frightening how fast these things can happen, and quite often it just happens with a rumor, as unfortunately we've seen many times in the past. Something as simple as a tweet can cause a rush on the bank and many clients drawing out their investments very quickly. So a big thank you to Aptera for replying relatively quickly to this situation. It certainly made me feel a lot calmer. In other news, there have been some nice tweets from Steve Fambro and the Aptera team, including a look inside the warehouse that hopefully will one day be absolutely full of Aptera parts, and also a bit of an inside look at the Aptera Accelerator book. I would love to get my hands on one of those. Well, unfortunately, I don't have a spare 10,000 to invest. Otherwise, I would definitely have already done that by now. Aptera also shared a tweet from @ZachsJerryRig, which is JerryRig everything. It looks like he's going to be posting another video with Aptera involved, which should be posted up soon. We also got a look at one of the massive tooling blocks that is being prepared for the Aptera, but it's very good to see that it's already taking shape and that they're already getting some of the tooling parts ready for production. That's it, guys. Sorry this is a quick one. I hope you're all right. Like and subscribe as always, and I will see you next time.